one thing you wish people understood about you?
That's really interesting because I've started to formulate this idea, I don't need people to understand me. If I'm misunderstood in your brain, it's in your brain. I am still in the mode of wanting to be understood, and I still, sometimes when people say something, I'm like, well, oh, no. It's like, but I'm trying to catch myself now of like, it doesn't really matter. I don't need to be understood. Maybe I need to be understood to like my few good friends, like that sort of thing. But other than that, if I'm misunderstood in your eyes, well, then I'm misunderstood. Yeah, I guess it comes from, I've got HIV, so there was a period where you just did a lot of explaining, and then I thought I might have ADHD, and then you just have to do a lot of explaining, and you're gay, so you have to do a lot of explaining, and now with being diagnosed with GAD, general anxiety disorder, you have to do a lot of explaining, and you know, you say, oh, I've got really bad anxiety, and people are like, oh, well, I do too, and I'm like, yeah, but does it take you 20 minutes to leave the house? Then no, I don't think you have really bad anxiety. And I understand people are trying to connect with you, and they're trying to, but I've just done so much explaining in my life that I don't need to anymore. And I guess I'll preface that with it's situational. I guess it's, I don't know if you could relate it to a person of color experience. They shouldn't have to explain much. In some situations, yes, maybe they need to because there's not an encyclopedia around, or there's no Google, or whatever. I'm sure there's some situations where you have to do some explaining, but just like them, I don't think I have to explain anymore. I think maybe some of that should be your work, not my work. And again, certain situations dictate that I have to do the work. That's fine, that's okay. But I just don't really need to be understood anymore. If I'm misunderstood, yeah. I mean, I think that makes a great drag name, doesn't it? Misunderstood.
Tell me about your first heartbreak.
My first heartbreak with a person would probably have been this guy I was dating, Chad. But it was heartbreak over the idea of us. It was one of my first relationships. And he was this lovely mountain man. He saved great bears in the Great Bear Rainforest. And he's one of those gentlemen that didn't ever have to go to the gym, but always looked like he did. And he was just, and still is, a very lovely and wonderful gentleman. He broke up with me. I say it was break up because about the idea of us, because I was in love with, being one of your first relationships when you're gay, I was in love with the idea of us. And I think I was in love with him to a certain extent, but it was one of my first heartbreaks. And he had broken up with me on the Friday, but we didn't really have time to talk about it till I finished a drag show on Sunday. I ended up doing this song. It was a B-side by Bjork called So Broken, and it's her and a flamenco guitarist, and she kind of screams about this plane that she can't land, and it's about this relationship and that won't work, and her heart is so broken and she's mean enough to kill. And so I didn't know how to do the number, so I decided to go get a cow heart from Safeway, and I put it in a cooler, and I labeled the cooler Caution Broken Human Heart, and I made a straitjacket. I covered it in I didn't cover it in fake blood because there was blood from the cow heart. And I brought an axe on stage. And I proceeded to do the song as if I was in the straitjacket. Basically, like pulling myself out of the straitjacket. I made the straitjacket out of like a white blazer too. And I wrote cringingly, I probably shouldn't have done this, but the name of the crazy hospital in Victoria, I wrote it on the thing. And I pull out of the straitjacket, and I rip and open the cooler, and I'm threatening the audience with the axe, and I'm chopping the heart up on stage and ripping it apart with my teeth in my hands. And I remember I got off stage, and the DJ at the time was like, wow, remind me never to break up with you. And then I went to go talk about my breakup with Chad. Once I'd already worked it out on stage, he said, well, why don't you stay here that night? And that's probably what I shouldn't have done. Bed was like up against the wall, and so in the morning he was so curled up into the wall, like he was trying to disappear into the wall, and I couldn't handle it, and I just got my stuff and I left. And I think, yes, I went out to the breakwater, which is like a really long dock, and listened to Everything But the Girl, I think twice over, and just cried and cried and cried. That was heartbreak, but heartbreak over an idea. Heartbreak over something, I'm gonna go back to this one moment when I was a kid, because I actually think it not broke my spirit, but like broke that part of my heart. So and it's like the silliest story, but like it really sticks with me. We were driving back from Vancouver, and the Coquihalla wasn't made yet, so we were going the long way. So you go through Hell's Gate and Cache Creek and all this stuff. And at Hell's Gate, it's like a big valley. It's big like river valley with straight rock walls, and there's like a gondola that goes back and forth between, like, over the river, and it's this fun thing. When I was a kid, we hadn't traveled much, just around Prince George, so it was really exciting. And I really wanted to go. I've always wanted to go. I've never been. I've always wanted to go. I don't think it would be exciting now, but as a kid, you got to hang in a gondola over a big crevice, and there was a river. It was cool. My parents said I could go. Finally, if there was a but, I had to learn how to tie my shoe in the car. And the heartbreaking moment of driving past Hell's Gate and not having learned how to tie your shoe. And I don't even think there was a lot of time. Like, I think it was maybe like an hour and a half. I do things really slowly, guys. Just if you don't know, I take my time, like, yeah. So that did not happen. And it still sticks in my head for some reason. I was just really heartbroken that I didn't do it fast enough. I guess that's what makes me upset about the whole, is all those things I remember. And I have to tell myself this often. My parents did what they knew at the time. They did what they did at the time with what they knew and how they knew how to do it. And that's the information that they had. But I just remember, like, that wasn't, I just felt rushed. And I felt that I got taught, if you're not perfect, you don't get things. Yeah, so I think those would be my two. And I feel a little bit sort of like that they aren't the best examples, because I don't feel that they're heartbreaking enough. But then that stems to lots of other stuff that the world teaches you of, that this is only, heartbreak isn't this dramatic, then, well, it's not really heartbreak. Like, and it's weird, like, other things aren't heartbreaking, like getting HIV wasn't heartbreaking. Yeah, those would probably be the two that I guess the situation now, this one's hard, is watching a person you really love who's really old just fall apart. That's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because there's nothing you can do. Maybe that's the real heartbreak. How it just all falls apart at the end. And there's nothing you can really do. And sometimes you get heartbroken because you don't have to. I should probably tell everybody what I'm talking about. I broke up with my partner about a year and a half ago, and he's older, he's 75. And his body's just given out on him, and he doesn't really have anybody else to help. And I know I don't have to stay around and help. I mean, it's probably not healthy, as you can tell, but 10 years is a lot of time, and it's just heartbreaking to see, that part of life. And I just kind of wish we talked about that part of life more. I just cared about it more and thought about it more, because it's such a big part of our lives. Yet we don't acknowledge it or want to talk about it. And I think a lot of young people will be very surprised when they get there of what you have to put up with. And if the stuff that Bruce has to put up with now, of slowness and appointments taking a long time and like all that sort of stuff, and people not giving you dignity, and that's one of the most heartbreaking things, when a human being just has to ask for dignity. People can't even give that to you anymore. And I don't want to pound on young people and millennials or Generation Z, but I don't know. I think a lot of you guys are going to have a really rude awakening when you turn 65 and 70, and I mean, a lot of the medical stuff isn't there for Bruce now, and he's paid in for it. And I don't know if it's, I don't know. It's just really heartbreaking watching a human just sort of naturally fall apart.